මෙතන පෙන්නේ YouTube මම mute නේ. Hello again. We are back with the catch up with GCJ. Once again, we have two great personalities here to inspire and educate you. So let's see who will be joining us this time. Mr. Chami Akmeemana, past President Scout of St. Thomas Prep School, CEO of Convergence Tech. And Mr. Devanand Ramaiah, who is also a past President Scout of St. Thomas Prep School and Deputy Country Director, UNDP China. Good morning, both of you. So as usual, we invite our YouTube viewers to put on your questions during the program and we'll get them at the end. So Chami, my first question is to you. Since you were as a scout, what are your unforgettable scout memories in your scout life?
Okay, so good.
Apologies, I couldn't unmute there. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me and having us. It's a great honor to come back and speak to some of our stories to our brother scouts. So thank you very much. I guess it's hard to pinpoint the one or two experiences. Gosh, it's been an amazing journey as a Boy Scout with, in fact, my dear colleague here, Dev. Everything from the fairly mundane, preparing for your scout troop meetings to actual competitions like CPJ and Mayor's Flag to scout troop trips to sporting events, helping the communities in so many ways. It's hard to pinpoint the one thing, but I guess from a competitive element, one of the things it's hard to forget is St. Thomas's winning as a runner-up at the CPJ. Or the scout troop trips that we did around the country. I think it's hard for me to pinpoint the one, but overall it has been one of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah, okay. So Dave, I heard that you are also an active scout during your school days. So what were the milestones you achieved as a young scout?
You might need to unmute him because I struggle.
Yeah, I think the host has to unmute me, but thanks. First of all, very warm greetings to everybody who's online, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to join. Actually, it's a pleasure and a privilege for me to actually participate and share some of my reflections. I wouldn't say that it's all worth taking, but some of it might be with a pinch of salt. But the reality is scouting was everything for me, and in terms of everything that I've achieved in terms of my life so far, scouting has played a very pivotal part, actually a fundamental part in shaping me and molding me and my personality right from the start. While school and other environmental social aspects did contribute to molding my personality and who I am today, I think the greatest contributor, that one factor or the X factor I could call it, was scouting. And I mean, my achievements and memories are manifold. As Chami said, we have great friendships, but I mean, the things that I most love about scouting is the things that it taught me. It gave me an ability to see the country. Pretty much most of our camping trips were all over the country, where we not only made great memories, but it gave us an opportunity to explore Sri Lanka and the richness of it. It gave us a sense of camaraderie and friendship, which we carry to date. And also it taught us leadership and a bunch of other skills that I think we are still taking on to our daily work and lives even to date. I think you have some we might get to that at a later point. But I was a troop leader and I have done many things in scouting, but it's not about the badges that you get or the accolades that you achieve. Those are very, very important. But I think the key is the overall personality as well as your character and temperament that comes out of it. So I owe a lot to scouting. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to Chami. So how did scouting mold you to become the CEO of Convergence Tech?
Yeah, I think even to Dave's point earlier, scouting was such a huge component of our lives. It was the focal point of my life personally, I guess. One of the things that I learned very early on was giving back to communities. It's the one organization that I know anywhere in the world to this stage. At such an early age, you learn to give back and you learn to understand the importance of community. And this community building is quite important in my role as a CEO because you're building ecosystems around the world. You're giving back to society. Leadership skills are also something that I learned very early on as a scout. These are certainly not skills that schools necessarily teach even to this stage. Whereas in scouting, you're thrown in the deep end as a troop leader, a scout leader, even as a scout in a troop or a patrol. You're really learning these leadership skills, the camaraderie, the importance of working together, all disciplines, all ages, all races and cultural backgrounds and so on. So I think the combination of community, working together as a team, and the really strong leadership skills that you learn very, very early on, accountability, responsibility, being resilient as you compete with other patrols or outside of the school. I think these are all great skills that eventually help you become a leader or a great citizen in a corporate citizen. But certainly from my perspective, being a leader in the community was certainly all of these skills were learned formally or informally as a scout. So I can certainly speak to the value of some of these things that you might not appreciate now as a scout. Certainly, I didn't appreciate that I was learning to be a leader with some of these skills. But as you progress and you move around in life, if you reflect back to the learnings that you had as a scout, I think it's unbelievable some of the skills that you learn.
Yeah. So Dave, can you tell us more about your profile at the United Nations and how your past scouting experiences helped you to become the Deputy Country Director of UNDP?
Of course, currently I'm working in China and as a development practitioner because I do work for the United Nations Development Program. My job entails moving to different countries and working for 2, 3, 4 years. So mostly I was based I started my UN career in Sri Lanka, working for the UNDP in Sri Lanka, including supporting the post-tsunami recovery aspects. One of the greatest memories in terms of my work and life experience was starting there. Then I moved on with the UNDP to New York. I was working in New York in the headquarters in a couple of positions for 8 to 10 years. Then I moved back to Thailand, and I worked in Thailand in the regional headquarters. And in terms of my country experiences, I worked with the UN peacekeeping mission in East Timor and in Kosovo, and also Maldives, and now in China. So that kind of is so one is my work entails, actually, that's the beauty of it. It really intersects with the value of scouting, because my work is fundamentally about helping governments, but mostly helping people and those who are left behind and those who are the most vulnerable and those who are mostly in need. And that is a privilege and an honor, because at the end of the day, everything that you do is about lifting people out of poverty and giving them empowerment and ensuring that they are able to maximize their full human development potential. So that's fundamentally my work. But currently, of course, I work in China as the Deputy Country Director, but that entails, it's a management position. So it's the largest UN organization currently in China, and it's one of the largest officers in Asia Pacific with a big portfolio. So the skills that you learn in terms of leadership, conflict management, in terms of delegation, in terms of empathy and empowerment, all of that, I think, translates into our day-to-day life and work experience. And I think that Chami said it, and I think I will repeat this throughout as a thread throughout whatever questions that you ask, is that, everything that you do, somehow you end up drawing from some of the skill sets that you learned or some of the experiences that you learned, translating that into your real life. So it's like it's a university. You can go to a university and get your bachelor's or your master's or your PhD. It's great from an academic enrichment, but this also is in some sense a kind of university for life. So maybe I'll stop there.
Okay. So once again, I remind all our YouTube viewers to put on your questions at the chat so we can answer them in the end. And over to you, Chami. So we heard that you are closely working with a movement known as a Global Student Voice. So can you enlighten us enlighten our youth participants more on that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So as part of our corporate social responsibility, or CSR, our way of giving back to the community has been a couple of different initiatives. One being a global student challenge that attracts about 1,000 students from 63 countries, 60 plus countries. And the Global Student Voice, essentially, it's an event that we do every 2 months. We invite an interesting presenter from around the world, and they would speak to life skills or something that the schools don't necessarily have time or the ability to deliver. And these are meant to essentially democratize life skills that students need to learn, anything from health and mental wellness to financial literacy, which we had last week. We have the former president of Starbucks speaking to servant leadership. We've had Lirom Siegel, one of the top 40 healthcare influencers in the world, speak to entrepreneurship. So these are all life skills and presentations that you might not get to experience on a day-to-day basis. And we bring phenomenal speakers from around the world. And as long as you're a student age 16 to 24, you can tap into these sessions. They're quite informative. We provide a credential as part of that, and eventually hope that this could contribute to your continuous learning. Because as you know, school is one element. Scouts is one huge element, it has been for myself. And then there's all these other things. There's other extracurricular activities. There's sports. And then this is something that we strongly feel would help you and guide you through your career, but also to be a better corporate citizen. So we could share with you the link. It's essentially Global Student Voice is the website. You could sign on as long as you're a student. It's free to register. All the content is free. And we hope to have around 5,000 students that sign up to these virtual webinars. And our eventual goal with this is to be able to tie people into virtual internships as well. So there are many global corporations that are providing virtual or digital internships. And as a student in Sri Lanka, you would then have an opportunity to tap into a digital opportunity outside of the country, or meet people from outside of the country that you won't necessarily get to meet on the ground. So highly encourage you to join these bi-monthly events. Because this is content that, it's impossible to find this content even on YouTube. Our goal is to really democratize this content so that as a student anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, I mean, these are attended by over 1,000 students usually when we do the challenges. 60 countries means you get to tap into, back in the day, we would refer to them as pen pals. But now you would get to tap into networks around the world and connect with fellow students, Boy Scouts or not. So highly encourage you to do so. And if you have any questions, I can share my email, which is chami@convergence.tech. So you could see the company name on my logo. It's chami@convergence.tech. If you email me, I'm more than happy to respond to you with any questions. Anyone that's listening in, I'll be glad to provide any further information on that.
Wow, that would be an amazing opportunity for our young scouts. So we'll get to some messages from our sponsors for a while. So Dave, uh, Scouts are also contributing to the United Nations 2030 agenda through an initiative called Scouts for SDGs. Can you tell us what the UN 2030 agenda is and how Scouts can contribute?
Thanks. I think this is actually a very important question, and I'm very passionate about this subject. And I'm really, really glad, and also lots of credit to Janakprit and others for getting the Scout movement linked with the SDGs. Now, the SDGs are the world's most ambitious development agenda ever conceived by humankind. And that's very important because it's almost every single country on earth has come together and agreed on a development framework for the betterment of humanity. And that brings together three key elements, the environmental element, the economic element, and the social element. So it's an integrated agenda. And a couple of things to remember about the SDGs is, or the 2030 agenda, is that first, it's an integrated development agenda. So it says that sometimes, people are driven by interest in GDP growth or making money. So it balances the need between environmental, social, and economic benefits. That's one. Second is that it is applicable both to developing and developed countries. Previous development frameworks were always focused on developing countries, but if you take current challenges, then you know that these challenges knows no boundary. These are boundary issues cutting across many countries. So that's the second element of it. It's applicable to developing countries and developed countries. The third element of an SDG that I would like you and the audience to remember is that it is also focuses on leaving no one behind. It's like a mantra, we call it LNOBP, that is ensuring that no one is left behind and we actually pull the furthest and the last first. So that's basically the principles of the SDGs, and all the member states, including Sri Lanka, China, where I am now, all countries have signed up to it. Now, I don't know whether your audience know, but I would like to put one statistics on the table is that currently there are 1.8 billion youth population in the globe. And this is the largest cohort of youth ever that lived on the planet. And you, that includes the moderator and everybody who has joined, are that generation. You make up that number and you are the future of this planet. The existential crisis that we face, I think it's a triple crisis that we are facing. One is on the climate change, is a big crisis. It's an existential emergency for humankind. Second is degradation of biodiversity and environment is a second big crisis. And third is the socio-economic consequences as well as the health consequences and crisis of COVID-19. So the world is facing a triple challenge that would have the massive impact on the current youth generation that's going to grow up. So the solutions to some of these existential crises are with this generation. So you are facing the problem, but you are also bringing the solution. So I think our generation is, I wouldn't say kind of over, but there are lots of hope that's been pinned on you. That why I'm saying that is making sure that the SDGs is delivered by 2030 and the climate agenda is delivered by 2050 according to Paris Accord rests in the hands of people like you all. And the scouting movement is one of the anchors or the foundations on this journey of better development for humankind and ensuring that the scout movement aligns itself much closer to the SDGs and contributes to the SDGs is actually a great way to move forward. You can take lots of the principles that the scouting movement subscribes to and fundamentally values and map it against the 17 SDG targets and the 169 goals. So, that alignment, in some sense, it's forethought, right? If you can think about Lord Ben Powell, when he started the scouting movement years before, conceived of certain principles that aligns to the SDGs, which just came, recently. So, the foresight needs to be appreciated. And I want to close by saying, I don't want to go into an academic, it's a passionate subject, so I sometimes go too much. So I don't want to get into an academic lecture of what the SDGs is, but I want to end with 2 points. One is the 17 goals have 169 targets, but 65 out of those 169 targets, in some sense, make a reference to youth and young people. And that's very important to know, and lots of people don't know that. That means you can see the importance of youth to the SDG agenda, and the scouting movement kind of comes in to complement that need. One final thought, people have heard of this saying, and it's very popular. Lots of us use it that, if you feed a hungry man or a woman, he or she feeds for oneself and one day and is hungry the next day. But if you teach them to fish, they feed themselves forever, right? I think lots of people have heard different variations of this saying. But if you imagine a world in which the person doesn't know how to fish, cannot have a fishing rod to fish, or if all the fishing rods are owned by one person, you're talking about inequality. If a woman is not allowed to fish, you're talking about gender, another SDG. And if you are fishing in a pond or a river that is dirty and polluted, you're talking about the SDG underwater, right? If the person is sick and the person is unable to get the health care, you're talking about health. Then if the person doesn't have the skill sets. So that is the beauty of the SDGs. It simply brings together these 17 interconnected and integrated goals and puts it into one overarching framework to which we can subscribe to. So all kudos to you all to starting this Scouts for the SDG movement. And I think the UN system, I'm glad that the UN system, I know my colleague Varun and others are online, but I'm glad that the UN system is working, and I think need to leverage this partnership even further to better the SDGs. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope our participants might have get a great idea about the SDGs. So Chami, can you inspire our young scouts by giving them a piece of advice from your past experiences to become an active citizen?
Sure, thank you. I guess what's quite important to know is this notion of, as I want to inspire my fellow scouts, is through things like continuous learning. I think these are terms that you need to look up and understand what this means. So continuous learning, skills-based training. So as opposed to giving one specific example of my scouting career, I want to give a combination of some of the skills that I've learned as a scout. So in current day and future, what we're going to see is more of skills-based training and skills-based hiring. So yes, it's the one thing to get high grades with your maths or your science or whichever path you choose to head down. But what's most important we're seeing is, be it universities or employers that are hiring, or even you're trying to be a better corporate citizen, this whole other skills that make you a whole human is what's quite important to understand. And these are all skills that you're learning as a scout. Everything from resilience, team building, taking responsibility, giving back, working together as a team, contributing together as a team, community spirit. These are all things that you would learn as a scout. You might not see that you're learning these skills, but I would highly encourage you to take a step back. Look at some of the skills that the global standards like the UNESCO's, the UNICEF's of the world are highlighting as these are some of the skills that we are looking for when we look at hiring. Critical thinking is one that's high up on the list of K-12 skills that we are identifying. Critical thinking is a significant part of what we learn to implement as a scout. So I think if you take stock of all of these skills that you're learning as a scout, learn how to amplify that in a global context, because no longer is the world limited to Colombo or Gampaha or Jaffna or Kabul in Afghanistan. The world is much bigger than that, and you guys are very lucky because you have the ability to tap into networks around the world, scouts around the world, and if you have this ability and you're learning all these skills as a scout, I think it's important to really understand what those skills are. And for me, personally, I think these skills have been fundamental in shaping who I am and what I am today. So that's the best piece of advice I can give is, if you have a growth mindset and you know that you will be continuously learning throughout your career, throughout your your relationships, but understanding that a lot of this is coming from your scout movement. During the break, I also dropped the student voice link if you want to register. We talk about these things at a lengthy scale when we do a Future of Learning conference at the end of this year. And that's tailored towards educators, teachers, students like yourselves, scouts, to really attend and learn what's happening in global, what are the global trends, what are the global shifts as it relates to the future of learning and the future of hiring. So you're most welcome to join any of our sessions. To me personally, it's a great honor and a privilege to give back as a scout, give back as a fellow Sri Lankan. So if there's any ways we can contribute and support, I will certainly dedicate a lot of my time to this cause.
Wow, that was a great piece of advice. So okay, so it's time for a little commercial break. Okay, so Dave, now our youth participants are waiting to be inspired from your guidance. What are the take-home messages you'd like to give?
Okay, let me try my best. I'm not sure whether I can inspire them, but I really want to, what I want to tell is that you are going to face a world that is going to be very drastically different to the world that you currently know. If you are very young, the chances are that you would live close to 90 to 100 with the improvements in medical sciences. You're going to move into a world because of technological disruptions. The kind of jobs and the future of work that you're used to will be very, very different. We are the last generation with a career path and pensions. You won't have that. You will be a generation that would do multiple jobs. There's nothing called a concept of retirement. You would live in a world of shared economy and automation. So that can be daunting, but that also can be lots of fun. So in that, I just want to leave three things. First is be confident. One is, no matter who, you can be Nelson Mandela, you can be Chami, you can be me, sometimes people do lack confidence. It's about training, it's about improving, it's about not knowing what you don't know, learning about it. But be confident. You need to have the confidence in yourself to go forward in life and to achieve things. So that's my first advice. My second advice is be compassionate, because I think all of us around this table today or in this virtual forum are blessed. And Chami said this in the beginning, that giving back to your society, no matter in a small way or big way, or contributing to making your planet better, making your life better, making your relationships better, making your working environment better. But be compassionate. That's important. Do not forget that you're privileged. Do not forget that while we speak, there are people who are suffering, people who do not have health care, people who are dying because of sicknesses, people living in war-torn countries, going through natural resources. So that's my natural disaster. So that's my second advice. Be compassionate. And my third one is be passionate. That's the most important thing for me. No matter what you do, it really doesn't matter what the world thinks of it. Is it whatever you choose to do, whatever you are doing, be passionate, give your 100%. I think that brings out the best. And I think this is a learned skill. You might look at people and think, oh, this person has achieved it, or he has great public speaking skills, or great writing skills, or great leadership skills. It doesn't come. Nobody's born with this. You can cultivate it. So everybody you can look up and admire, and I do admire lots of people, sometimes lack confidence, sometimes lack passion, sometimes are not compassionate. So that is my advice. If you don't take away anything that I told you today, but at least just remember those three.
Wow. So it's time for the audience. So let's see what our young scouts in the audience want to ask from you too. Wow, I think most of them are to Dave. And this is to Chami. So how can we join Global Students Voice?
So it's as simple as registering yourself on the website. Once you get on the website, there should be a link to register. As soon as you register, if you want to drop a personal note to me, do so, and then just highlight that you got the information from the Scouts Jamboree, and I can pay a bit more personal attention to that. But it's as simple as jumping on the website and registering on the link.
Yeah, I think our organizing team will work on to put you the link on the chat now. And the next question is to Dave. What are the activities and services done by UNDP?
Basically, we work in three big areas. One is related to poverty reduction, and that's where we focus on ensuring that people are lifted out of poverty, but with a multidimensional lens, that when you in the UN, UNDP, when we talk about poverty, it's not only about income poverty, it is about access to education, access to healthcare, etc. So simply put, that's one area that we work on. The second area we work in is on environment and climate change. I told you that this is actually the biggest challenge that this humanity currently faces. So we do lots of work on climate adaptation, as well as mitigation. So this is actually helping people and communities as well as countries in terms of policy, because at the end of the day, some small projects and small pilot projects doesn't get us anywhere unless there are correct policy infrastructure in place to basically incentivize some of these changes as well as bring forth development. So the second area that we work is on environment and climate. And then the third is about partnerships. We work a lot about ensuring South-South cooperation. So basically there are lessons, and that's why Scout movement is such a great network. There are lessons that one country or one community that can bring to the table in terms of development, in terms of poverty reduction or disaster risk reduction, that you can laterally scale and learn from, no matter another country that you are in. So if you take Vanuatu, which is an island state in the Pacific, and take Maldives, there are lots they can learn from each other, even though they are thousands of miles apart. So the third area that we focus on is on partnership. At least I'm talking about UNDP here in China. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is a reminder to our audience. Even you can ask your questions in Sinhala as well if you are facing a language barrier, and our organizing team will. So the next question is also today. So as scouts, how can we join UNDP for volunteering?
So look, I think lots of people, I had a kind of a passion to join the UN when I was very young, and I know there are lots of young people here, young boys and girls who would be interested in doing this. So there are several ways you can do this. One is that you can look at internships in the UN system, but of course to do internships in the UN system, you have to be of a certain age and have to be registered in certain courses, but that's one pathway. Another pathway, which is a great pathway, is the UN Volunteers Program. And I know the scouting movement here is cooperating with the UN volunteers in Sri Lanka, I think, for this Jamboree. The UN volunteer movement gives an opportunity for young people, but also for even old retired people to come back as a volunteer to give back to your society. But that actually is a great entry point. I actually started initially my first step into the UN system as a volunteer. Now, of course, the UN also does lots of youth-related entrepreneurship training and youth skills-related training and something we call the Youth Collab, which is a regional program. So those opportunities, like what Chami was mentioning, is out there. So we do sometimes competitions, sometimes hackathons. The idea is to get some of the young minds who have solutions to social issues to the table and give them an opportunity. So those are kind of three tracks for young people. Of course, then others who are interested need to also have to go through other competitive examinations or competitive recruitment processes. So there are multiple ways of joining, and UN is a big organization. There are lots of sister organizations like UNICEF, WFP. So depending on the area of interest, there are lots of things they can explore, but it's important, of course, to have that minimum qualifications. And trust me on this one, that the scouting skills and having this on your CV is definitely a plus.
Okay, so next question is to Chami. So what are the services given by your company, Convergence Tech?
Sure, I guess I could actually quickly give you some background on myself as well, and how it relates to what we do currently. So I'm an engineer by training. I completed a PhD going back, 25 years ago, looking at 3D printing of facial ceramics. Went on to join the police. I was a police officer in the UK, and then got into business in Australia. So this current company that I head up is very much focused on digital transformation. So digital transformation as it relates to technological as well as human involvement in how you transform a business. And we look at blockchain as one of the tool sets for two different applications: traceability and digital identity. So digital identity, we take a stance of you should own your data, you should own your identity. It's often referred to as self-sovereign. That is a key focus for us. The second part being traceability. So looking at sustainable, traceable livestock, commodities trading, things like that. So we're actually, in fact, doing a project in Sri Lanka We're also doing a project in countries like Mongolia and Morocco around traceability of argan oil and Kashmir and things like that. These are all UNDP projects. In fact, we first engaged with Dave a few years ago on some of this work. So it's been very much focused on commercial, but also a huge part of this is social and looking at the developing world and implementing such systems. So that's been our focus. We do have a small team in Sri Lanka. We're always looking at technology talent in Sri Lanka. And if you do want to talk work and how you pursue a path in technology, I'm more than happy to speak to that as well. But also, I wanted to make a side comment. This is something I noted when Dave was ending his commentary earlier. If you notice, Dave and I have very different paths. One is social government, big focus there. I've gone down a private corporate path. But if you look at our skills, we talk about the same skills. So no matter what you do, the skills that you're learning as a scout, would absolutely help you no matter what path you take. So sorry, I wanted to digress that there and highlight some of that.
Okay, so the next question is for both of you, I guess. So what is your favorite camping experience until now? Tell us about it.
I mean, for me, it is actually, I think Chami and I might have the same camp, but it's Mirigam was one of my favorite camping experience. And like I said, the beauty of those camping experiences, one is not that everything that you learn and everything that you do and the competition between patrols and how we really like to compete that brings the best in each other, the games and the sporting things that we play on the side, but also the fun times, the sing songs and the campfires with Jana, basically Sir Janaprit, getting everybody going. The skits that we do, it's so hilarious. Actually, some of those skits I still do during staffing events here, things that I learned there. And the pranks, the pranks that we play, I'm sure most of you can relate to this. We used to have such good fun. And I think, feeling a bit nostalgic talking here, that kind of memories that you make and friendships that you make is life lasting. Currently we have a old scouts group that we are part of. We still engage, and I know that friendship is very strong and they're dependable. We still do public projects. So anyway, I'm also digressing, but the simple answer is Mirigama was but we have had many other camps together and a couple at Mirigama. Over.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would.
So what about Chami?
I would have to agree. Gosh, Dave, we could talk about this for days. The amount of fun that we had. So, as much as I would like to say here, I appreciate all the learnings of the camp. But to me personally, as Dave said, it was the fun. I think we learned how to have fun and in a respectful and meaningful way. Can you imagine learning to cook as a 14-year-old and you're cooking for 30 people in the middle of nowhere? It's raining outside and you've got firewood and that's all you have to cook for 30 people, or pitching tent in a forest and you're trying to, with very little experience on living in the bush. It's always been a tremendous fun experience. I think all of those camps have been fun for me personally. Any camp with Dave has always been fun anyway.
Okay, so the next one is back to Dave from a little participant. One day when I become an adult, can I join UN?
The answer is yes. Not only you can join the UN, you can do whatever you put your heart to. So be confident and set a goal, and maybe one day you will be my boss and I'll be happy to work for you.
So the next question is also to Dave. So what are the other youth movements other than WASM joined UN 2030 agenda?
Of course, there are lots of, off the top of my head, I think Scouts are one of the large youth movements. Then there are other youth groups, there are youth leagues, youth foundations, then there are school-related clubs, Leo clubs, I guess, interact clubs. There are lots of others maybe everybody doesn't promote them fundamentally as youth clubs, but the thing is, what is nice is currently there are lots of opportunity for people to volunteer, to co-create, to come together. And off the top of my head, I can't remember everything, or I wouldn't give an exhaustive list. But what I'm trying to say is there are opportunities, even through religious institutions. If some of you, if you are religious, then religious institutions. So everything pretty much has opportunities for youth to come together and to contribute for the goodness of society, to learn. So there are a lot out there.
Okay, so this is to Chami. What are the main focus areas of UN 2030 agenda?
So I guess in our case, all of it applies because we apply that by way of our CSR, or corporate social responsibility, looking at youth and education being the non-corporate social cause. But the rest of it is addressed as best we can through all of our engagements with clients. I think very early on, Dave talked about GDP as one component of how, GDP seems to be, unfortunately, the biggest component of how you evaluate or compare countries. But the social pillars, the social elements are, I would argue, even more important, how you treat your society, how you treat your citizens. So I would say we do an all-encompassing in our approach. We look at the economic models, but SDGs are guiding lights. Hence why, Dave gave me this a while ago. I proudly flaunt the SDG goals because that seems to be our guiding light in our commercial sense.
Okay, so this is to Dave. What are the activities that Scouts can do to achieve SDGs?
So, look, on the environment, when you do something like, planting trees or ensuring that, you do not use plastics. And I would like to ask in this, this is a virtual jamboree, but, when you do jamborees and other camping event, you ensuring that you reduce or 100% actually eliminate the use of plastics, you're contributing to the SDGs in terms of the environment. If you're planting trees, you're contributing to the environment. If you work out, if you get a run and keep yourself healthy, and then if you eat healthy food and stay off junk food, you're contributing to the SDGs, because health is also one of the SDGs. And ensuring that you educate yourself or you build skills for the future, that's also SDG. So lots of things you can do, unknowingly you're already contributing. Simple things like ensuring that you use less water or turn off water. You are ensuring that how you are conscious of the energy that you use. You cycle more, use less petrol. These are the things that actually you can influence your parents and your extended families, which also will contribute to the SDGs. So always remember that you said there's a young person, irrespective of your age, your gender, you can in meaningful ways contribute, and that's the beauty of it. And there are millions of ways of contributing it. I would share a couple of websites that you can look at and contribute, how you can join global movements to get on with this agenda.
Yeah, so talking about SDGs, we have prepared a pledge for the participants. So you all can go to the GCJ website and pledge on reducing plastics. And the next question is to Chami. What are the benefits we can get if you get registered for the Student Voice?
So, you get to access content that you wouldn't typically get access to. So the upcoming speaker in September is the former president of Starbucks. So Howard is very well known for his, it's called servant leadership. If you look it up, or if you Google what that means, he's known for implementing such a system at Starbucks, which is one of the biggest companies in the world. So you're learning from the man himself, something that he would typically charge a lot of money to present. So it's free content. It's super content that you wouldn't learn at school. We have no commercial interest in this. We are simply giving back. This will essentially, every piece of presentation that we provide bi-monthly has been curated personally within our team, but also this feedback comes from students that are seeing a need. So this is a topic, this is a subject that the students wanted to learn about. Last week, we covered financial literacy. Financial literacy is not covered even in countries like Canada or US. You know, if the data shows that the earlier on that you start saving, the less likelihood you're going to be in debt very late in life. As a student, you have so many mechanisms to save, to invest, to do a whole bunch of things with money that you earn. Even if it's a 10 rupees a month or 1,000 rupees a month, there's much you could do. I think giving these skills to students at a very early age is fundamentally important. I mean, if you don't understand finance, I don't think most adults understand financial literacy because it's not a taught discipline in school. Critical thinking, what does that mean? So these are all things that we hope to cover, and this is free content, and you get to tap into networks around the world, really.
Yeah, okay. So as the final note, both of you can give our participants some comments on as a final comment.
So I think so. There's a noticing from the some of the questions. There's a huge interest in SDG. I think as a scout, you're already there with your thinking, even though you might not have a formal thinking of, am I applying my life skills into these SDG goals? But you already are, because you've already started doing something for the community. You've already started thinking about the environment. When you start camping, you leave the place even better the way you've approached it. So there are many skills that you've already acquired, learning, implementing as a scout. So you're already way ahead of anyone that's not a scout. These are really amazing skills, and I think it's very important to embrace these skills and not get caught up in what the world thinks I should be. It really needs to be what you think you should be, and have fun being what you're doing. Scouting has really molded and shaped me. I mean, Janapith, who's on the call, he's was my scout leader when I was, 10, 12, 14 years old. I'm 45 now. I've lived a tremendous life. We still maintain great friendships. Dev and I went to school together. We still maintain friendships. These are all amazing skills that you may or may not learn, understand that you're learning, acquiring throughout your path as a scout. And the world is amazing. I'm still engaged with scouts. We're having discussions with the scouts from Bahamas, the scouts from the US, and scouts from New Zealand. There's other work that we're looking at supporting. Scouting really opens up a big global network. And I think really understanding the depth and scale of the impact that you're causing, and the depth and scale of the network as you leave outside the country is tremendous. I'm more than happy to contribute some of my time to support any of the scouting activities in Sri Lanka. I think it's certainly our duty as leaders. So thank you very much. It's been an absolute honor to share some of our experience. Hopefully it has helped in some way.
And Dev?
Just to complement what Chami said, you all are the largest youth generation, I already told you, and you all have some daunting and existential challenges in front of you, but you all are also the generation that actually is holding all the solutions to these challenges that we are going to face. So you are a transitional generation. I think we all have lots of faith in you and hope in you, and you all definitely have the talent and the enabling environment to get through some of these challenges. As a scout, because you all are already scouts, you're already in the right journey. The world needs more inspired and better citizens, and scouting actually gives you one of those foundations to do that. So be well, go conquer what you want to conquer, be confident, and hopefully our paths will cross. And I have definitely benefited a lot, and you would benefit a lot from scouting. And I know you all will also contribute back to people and to your country. Over.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Dev and Chami, for joining with us at the Global Cultural Jamboree. And I'm sure that this have been inspiring and more informative session for our participants. So hope to see you soon, most probably at a live session physically once this pandemic is over. So that brings us to the end of the second episode of Catch Up at GCJ. See you tomorrow with a brand new episode. Until then, take care. And you can stay tuned with the Global Cultural Jamboree. Signing off from you, I'm Dinusha Kulasooriya.
That was okay.
Yeah, Chami, thanks.
We're not live, are we?
No.
Okay. That was awesome. Thank you, John. I really appreciate you thinking of me for that.
Thank you very much for joining. I think very inspirational. And Dev, your friend Varuna is also here. Is Dev still there?
Dave has left, I think.
So, Chami, please take some rest. I know